A ban preventing UNRWA from operating in occupied East Jerusalem and Israel took effect today. This controversial move follows a vote by the Israeli parliament 3 months ago, and a rejection of a legal challenge to pause the ban by the Israeli Supreme Court on Wednesday. Meanwhile, UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric said that the UN has measures in place for staff safety but hasn't received assurances from Israel. He affirmed UNRWA will continue its mandate until physically unable.
About UNRWA, tomorrow is the deadline that Israel gave UNRWA to vacate all these premises in East Jerusalem. The Secretary General in his letter to Israel said that, requested for this order to be retracted, and that it's impossible. So what will happen tomorrow? Will UNRWA be able to, or be willing to evacuate all its premises in East Jerusalem?
Listen, let's see what happens tomorrow, right? We have taken some measures, but I think as Philippe was clearly said yesterday, UNRWA will continue to deliver on its mandate until it physically cannot.
Palestine's UN ambassador, Riyad Mansour, also said that UNRWA operates under international law and that Israel has no right to ban its work. He urged the Security Council to protect Palestinian rights, emphasizing that only the Palestinian government and UNRWA can provide essential services to Palestinians.
UN staff and humanitarians deserve to be better protected, and we have a duty to hold accountable those who have shown such disregard for the most fundamental rules of our international law-based order, leaving international humanitarian law in tatters and immediate need of reinforcement. Mr. President, Israel has destroyed everything in Gaza. Everything. Except the sacred bond between a people and their land. Their roots run too deep. Their history covers millennia. The wounds of their Nakba have yet to heal. So by hundreds of thousands, they are going back to the north from which they were uprooted and expelled by the occupying power. Yesterday, in 2 hours, Mr. President, 200,000 Palestinians marched walking from the south to the north. Old men and women holding a tired cane, small children who have just recently learned to walk, families carrying whatever they can of what remains of who they are. Men and women, exhausted, bereaved, sometimes injured, finding the energy to take one step after another to reverse this latest forcible displacement, survivors of a genocide fighting against ethnic cleansing. They know they are returning to find ruins, that their homes have been destroyed, their neighborhoods have been obliterated, their schools and hospitals have been bombed. They know that all the requirements of life have been deliberately targeted, and yet, still, they went back. That image tells you all you need to know about the Palestinian people. This is who we are. Their tragedy, their pain and agony, all that they have endured, and the wish of Israel to humiliate them and to make them suffer, even as refugees returning to destroyed refugee camps, not to their villages and towns. But also, this image shows their resilience, their steadfastness, their inability to surrender, and just how much they belong to this land, and this land belongs to them. This is the Palestinian struggle, a simple dream, living in freedom and dignity in their ancestral land. Mr. President, Israel thought by destroying everything, Palestinians would have to leave. It has often made this miscalculation, and now they're trying again in the refugee camps in Jenin, Tulkarem, Nablus, Tubas, and East Jerusalem. That by making our people's lives more miserable, more unbearable, more impossible, it will get rid of the Palestinians. And it is again this miscalculation that is behind its attacks against UNRWA. Israel has been attacking UNRWA long before October 7, and at that time it did not try to conceal its objectives. It wanted to end the refugee problem, to erase rights that cannot be erased, that are inalienable. The idea is simple. To get rid of the refugees, you just try and destroy the agency itself. If there is no education, no health, no assistance, they will surrender. They will leave. They will abandon the land and their dream of liberation and return. UNRWA makes the lives of our people better, but it is not the reason they have a right of return. And it is not what connects them to the land. And it is not their identity, nor their refusal to relinquish it. If you think that by destroying, displacing, impoverishing communities, you will have peace, you are terribly mistaken. UNRWA was created to alleviate the damage caused by Israel and this prolonged conflict to the lives and rights of Palestine refugees. First, to offer emergency assistance, and then to offer human development, to restore hope in places of despair, to help people to rebuild their lives, to rebuild communities, to protect and support in times of crisis and upheaval, until a just solution to their plight as required by equity and justice, as enshrined in UN resolutions, including Resolution 194. Mr. President, UNRWA's mandate stems from a decision of the international community as a whole, taken over 7 decades ago and renewed with overwhelming support ever since. This mandate, repeatedly renewed by the General Assembly and overwhelmingly reaffirmed as again on the 11th of December in Resolution ES-10/25, ends once the question of Palestine is resolved in all its aspects in accordance with international law and the relevant UN resolutions. If anything, this latest man-made humanitarian catastrophe and unprecedented crisis demonstrate the urgency to implement such a solution. Mr. President, we all refer to UNRWA as the backbone of the humanitarian response in Gaza, forgetting that this was not its core mandate, but rather its response to unforeseen tragic events. UN staff and humanitarians paid a very high price for their attempts to help a people being deliberately targeted and starved and forcibly displaced. Yet UNRWA continues to possess the personnel capacity and infrastructure to carry out the monumental tasks imposed by the emergency situation on the ground. But UNRWA's long-standing role remains to provide education, primary health care, human development opportunities to millions of Palestine refugees across the region, in the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem, and in Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. This is UNRWA's mandate on behalf of the international community. No one other than the General Assembly can unilaterally alter this mandate, imperative for the well-being of millions and for regional stability. There are two organized forces, Mr. President, that can respond to the prevailing disastrous conditions and restore life and hope for the Palestinian people with the support of the international community: the Palestinian government and UNRWA. And yet, Israel is demanding that everyone forsake them and work around them, setting us all up for failure. The consequences and repercussions will be grave. There is no alternative to the Palestinian government, and there is no alternative to UNRWA. Israel that destroyed Gaza and openly aims at getting rid of the Palestinian people does not get to pick and choose who represents the Palestinian people or who represents the UN. It does not get to distort the law and the narrative. It does not get to claim some sort of exceptional status that allows it to commit crimes and enjoy impunity. The problem is not the rules, but their breach. It is not the courts trying to uphold them, but the perpetrators persisting in the commission of crimes. It is not the UN, but rather refusing to do what is necessary to preserve and respect our international law-based order. International law must be upheld. ICJ advisory opinions and provisional measures orders must be respected. Continuing to allow Israel to act as a state above the law is a recipe for only more conflict and disaster. In this regard, we reiterate, Israel has absolutely no sovereignty rights in the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem. Its presence in our territory is unlawful, and this illegal occupation in its entirety must come to an end. The only sovereign in this territory is the Palestinian people. International law is clear in this regard. The Charter is clear in this regard. The determinations of the ICJ are clear in this regard. The Security Council has also been absolutely clear in this regard. Most recently, in Resolution 2334, the Council must implement its resolutions without exception. Claims that Israel has a sovereignty in occupied East Jerusalem and can act accordingly, including with regard to the status of UNRWA compound, a UN property covered by the 1946 Convention on Privileges and Immunities, contradicts these resolutions, which are binding upon all. Mr. President, the UN member attacking this organization from within its halls, from within this room, openly attempting to destroy a UN agency, killing, maiming, and arresting UN staff, trying to take over, to steal UN premises in occupied East Jerusalem after having destroyed numerous ones in Gaza. This is a very dangerous precedent. If we allow it to pass, then all agencies are in danger. These United Nations are in danger. The entire international community has come to the defense of UNRWA, both at the General Assembly and the Security Council. The international community has affirmed its trust with how the UN respond to allegations and maintained that UNRWA was irreplaceable. For months and years now, Israel has tried to create a rift between the agency and its supporters. We must stand united to defend the agency, the people it serves, and what it stands for. Its role is more needed today than ever. Those who are trying to destroy it need to be defeated in this regard. Mr. President, this is a race against time, for life, for human development, for freedom, for peace. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians headed north, walking north, refusing to wait a single minute, risking their lives yet again. They are the story. They are the story. Hear it loud and clear. They are the story. Their long walk to freedom has lasted way too long. How many more years do you want us to keep walking for freedom? We've been walking for 80 years. It is our right to have freedom. It is our right to have the implementation of our inalienable rights, including our right to self-determination, statehood, and the right of the refugees to return. It is time for them to reach their destination. And we will, and we should reach our destination, and soon to reach freedom, to reach independence, and to live in dignity in our independent state of Palestine with East Jerusalem as its capital. The words owes them that it is your obligation to deliver to us that since you got involved in our case from its inception, then it is your duty to complete this exercise by fulfilling our rights, the rights of the Palestinian people. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians in refugee camps in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, also continue to rely on UNRWA for their well-being and protection, which are under direct and escalating threats as Israeli occupying forces and settlers intensify their attacks, causing loss of life and destruction of property and further forced displacement. The international community cannot ignore the rising violence and instability and cannot leave them with action in this critical moment. We therefore reiterate our standing appeals to the international community to continue their historic accompaniment of our people on this long and painful journey, of which UNRWA has been a central part and must remain so until its mandate is fulfilled with the realization of their rights and the just and peaceful solution we overcome all obstacles to achieve. Millions are depending on us, and we must not fail them. Millions of Palestine refugees. Thank you, Mr. President.